U.S. supports Philippines in South China Sea conflict after seeing Chinese ships in the West Philippine Sea. The Philippine Coast Guard, PHL, has spotted a swarm of more than 100 Chinese vessels, including a warship and Coast Guard ships, during its patrol in the West Philippine Sea (PEAS) from April 18 to 24. In a statement, the CG said the burp Malapascua and burp Malabrigo counted over 100 militia vessels, a corvette-class naval ship of the People's Liberation Army, and 2 Chinese Coast Guard vessels. The CG issued the update on its patrol almost a week after one of the 2 ships figured in a near collision with a Chinese Coast Guard vessel in the vicinity of Ayungin Shoal, which is within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone, EEZ, and where a detachment of Marines is stationed on a grounded World War I-era transport ship. But China's foreign ministry said it was the CG vessels that made a premeditated and provocative action. The PG's patrol covered the waters around Ayungin Shoal, Del Pilar Reef, Lawak, Patag, Likas, Parola, Pagis, Paralay, Pag, Ase, Tizard Bank, Julian Philippe Reef, and Ayungin Shoal. The CG said its ships drove away 4 maritime militia vessels engaged in fishing activities, some 4 nautical miles from Pag, Asa Island. However, 18 Chinese militia vessels detected near Ayungin Shoal ignored the CG's radio challenge and refused to leave the area. 17 groups of Chinese maritime militia ships in the vicinity of Julian Philippe Reef also ignored the Fiji men sent on inflatable boats to try to disperse them. On April 21, a Chinese warship with bow number 549 confronted CG vessels through radio challenge some 7 nautical miles from Pag, Ase Island. The PG vessels stood their ground, demanding that the Chinese leave the area instead. On the morning of April 23, 2 Chinese Coast Guard vessels made dangerous maneuvers near the Malapascua and Malabrigo in the vicinity of Ayungin Shoal. One of the Chinese vessels almost collided with the Malapascua. In a tweet, Seagulls Peace spokesman Commodore J. Terriella said it's the Chinese that were clearly stirring trouble in the South China Sea. China contends that the United States is escalating tensions in the South China Sea, and I'm curious how they would characterize these actions. Evidently, the Chinese Coast Guard is performing dangerous maneuver that clearly jeopardized the safety of persons on board a smaller CG vessel, he said. PG's fault, says Beijing, asked about the incident at a regular press briefing yesterday. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Mao Ning said the Philippine boats had intruded without China's permission. The Chinese Coast Guard vessel safeguarded China's territorial sovereignty and maritime order in accordance with the law while taking timely measures to avoid the dangerous approach of Philippine vessels and to avoid a collision, Mao said. It was a premeditated and provocative action for the Philippine vessel to barge into the waters of Rene Jiawa with journalists on board. The aim was to deliberately find fault and take the opportunity to hype up the incident, she added, calling Ayungin Shoal by the Beijing. After confirming the April 23 incident, the Department of Foreign Affairs, DFA, has again called on China to respect the legal rights of the Philippines to conduct patrols in West Philippine Sea. First of all, I would like to emphasize that the Philippines has the legal right to carry out routine maritime patrols in our territorial waters, and as DFA spokesperson May Teresita Daza said in a statement yesterday, the deployment of the burp Malabrigo and burp Malapascua in the West Philippine Sea from April 18 to 24 was one such mission, she stressed. In terms of DFA's perspective, every time there's an incident report, we await the official report coming from all relevant agencies. PG is one of them. And the DFA actually studies and analyzes and makes an assessment of it. Based on this incident report, an appropriate diplomatic action is taken, Daza said at a palace press briefing. Asked whether President Marcos has been briefed about the incident, Deza said the chief executive has been consistent with his directive to always uphold the country's interest. And in terms of the South China Sea, the president has always been consistent in saying that we will uphold our sovereignty and safeguard our sovereignty and safeguard our sovereign rights and interest in the South China. And we will do this through diplomacy, military law enforcement, and public diplomacy action, she said. The Chinese interference in the routine patrol mission of the two ships was totally inconsistent with freedom of navigation, she maintained. A number of documented incidents also involved highly dangerous maneuvers that were contrary to standard navigational practices, she pointed out.